some mashed potatoes. Now, this is a great recipe to use if you have leftover mashed potatoes, or maybe you don't have any potatoes. Make the mashed potatoes with instant potatoes. It's fine. I have here just some potatoes that I have peeled and cubed and cooked. That's it. And I've got about 3 tablespoons of butter. I'm going to add a little bit of salt because potatoes need salt. And I actually don't have any milk. And here is something that normally I use either heavy cream, 2% milk, or evaporated milk in my mashed potatoes. But I don't have any here. So I'm using some of the water that I made, or that the potatoes cooked in, because it has a little bit of starch. I don't want a lot because I want a thick potato. And I'm just going to mix them in the pot that just splattered up on my glasses. And I'm just gonna make some mashed potatoes, and I can tell you right now I'm gonna need a little more butter, because I like my potatoes to be very, very buttery. Okay. Now, before they're done, I'm gonna add a little bit of pepper, because I like pepper in my potatoes. Let me get my salt and pepper out of my way. Then we are going to add, let me put this over here for a sec, some cheese. This is just cheddar, shredded cheddar cheese. You use whatever you like. And then this is about half of a small container of the French fried onions. And I'm just gonna crunch those up, because this is actually gonna be the base to our chicken pie. So it's got a lot of flavors in it. And then I am gonna add just a little bit of pepper. You make your own favorite recipe for mashed potatoes and just add the cheese and the onions. And if you don't wanna put the cheese or the onions in there, then you don't have to, but it really does make a great mashed potato. And also you could add some sour cream or cream cheese to this, would be good. Either, you know, whatever you like. Just make your favorite mashed potato recipe. I'm gonna add the remaining water. I used probably about 4 ounces of my cooking water. If you have milk, use milk. But these days, we're all about using what we've got. And if you don't have it, find a substitute. Okay? That looks good. So I'm going to take these potatoes. Now I have here just a good old baking dish. You use whatever baking dish you have. And I'm gonna put these potatoes in the bottom of the dish. And I'll show you what we're gonna do. Get all those potatoes out of your pot. Then spread them out into the bottom and up the sides. I probably could have used a bigger baking dish, but it's all right. And then I'm gonna take, I like to just use a measuring cup and kind of press it down, because what you're making is a shell. You want to make a shell of the potatoes to put your chicken in. If you have leftover mashed potatoes, this is a great recipe for those. Okay? Just kind of push the potatoes up the side. You can use your fingers, use them, whatever you want. You do what works for you. I'm a firm believer, clean hands are a cook's best tool. All right, now, I have here, just set that to the side, I have here just some leftover rotisserie chicken. You want about 1.5 cups, 2 cups or so of chicken. However you have, if you've got leftover roasted chicken, use that. You could poach some chicken and use that, whatever you want to do. Add a little bit of salt, pepper, a little bit of ground thyme, and a little bit of garlic powder, including what I just dropped onto the cutting board. 1 bag of 10 ounces of frozen mixed vegetables that I just thawed, 1 can of cream of chicken soup. If you don't have cream of chicken, you can use cream of mushroom or cream of celery. Whatever you have will work. And then about 1/4 of a cup of milk, which again I don't have, so I'm using just chicken broth, which is fine. Mix all that together. Have your oven preheated to 350 degrees. And then pour this on top of your potato mixture. I probably should have gotten a bigger dish, but that's okay. Let me get my spoon. Get all that out. Put it in your potato shell. Spread it out. And we're going to pop this into a 350-degree oven for about, I don't know, 30 to 40 minutes. About after 30 minutes, what we're going to do is pull this out of the oven, and we're going to top it with a little bit more cheddar cheese and a little bit more of those French fried onions, if you so choose to do that. So I'm just going to pop this in the oven, clean up my mess, and when I come back, we're going to get started on a sour cream pound cake. So I'll be back in just a minute. Alrighty, now let's get started on our sour cream pound cake. Now I have my oven on at 350 with the chicken, so I'm just gonna bake this at 350. If you don't have anything in your oven, bake it at 325. We're gonna get started. I'm using my stand mixer because it just makes this process a little bit easier. I have 2 sticks of butter that I have softened, and I'm just going to whip that really well until it becomes light and airy and fluffy. Then we're going to add our sugar. Now this is not a sugar-free dessert. I need my little cup, and I'll just do it this way. Add your sugar a little bit at a time. And what happens is the crystals of the sugar cut through, the butter cuts through that. Let's turn it down just a little bit. I'm getting fluffed up sugar here. See all that poof of cloud? Okay. Let that go until it gets light and fluffy. Takes it just a minute. In the meantime, I'm going to add a little bit, about a teaspoon of pure vanilla extract. I'm going to stop it, and I'm going to scrape down my sides. And I'm going to add 6 eggs, 1 at a time. And I like to crack them. My mother always told me, crack them in a separate bowl. And I'm going to show you a little hint with your eggs. Anytime you're cracking eggs, if you will crack them on a flat surface like this, you don't get shells as easily. I'm not saying it won't ever happen, but it does help to stop the shells. As opposed to doing it on the side of a glass, do it on a flat surface. It cracks a little more evenly, and you're less likely to get shells in your egg because it's a little more spread out of a crack. My mama always told me crack my eggs in a separate bowl because she grew up at a time when you really could get, and I guess you still could get, a bad egg. You see how that just transforms that butter into a beautiful golden ribbon-like mixture. Our last egg. Okay, I'm gonna turn it off. I'm gonna scrape it down. And we're gonna add 8 ounces of sour cream. Please do not use reduced fat sour cream in this. You really do need the full fat. This is not one of those recipes that is when you're on a diet. But I promise you it is delicious. All right, now stir that in. It's a process, but it's delicious. In another bowl, you want to have 3 cups of flour, all-purpose flour, and a little bit of baking soda. And I like to add just a pinch of salt. Not much, just a pinch. It just brings out the flavors. And then you want to add your flour a little bit at a time. Let me grab it. I'll just use one of these. A little bit at a time. Turn it down or you're going to wear your flour. Beat it in just a little at a time. You could also leave your sour cream out and alternate your sour cream with your flour. But that's just too fussy for me. Sometimes I just want to do it this way. Now, do you see my board? This is why you do it a little at a time. If I were to put all that in there at one time, I would have a mess. You will need a bundt pan that I have sprayed with non-stick spray. I'm still gonna have to scrape up all my flour. And this is on as low as it goes. That's okay. Part of cooking is making a mess. I like to let most of that flour get stirred in before I add any more flour to it. Alrighty. Then we're gonna scrape down the sides and stir in all that extra flour that fell off out of my mixer. I love this little paddle. I ordered it separately from my KitchenAid. I love KitchenAid appliances, by the way. I get asked all the time, you know, what is my favorite brand of this or what is my favorite brand of that? Well, in my opinion, there's no better mixer than your KitchenAid. I got a KitchenAid. When Mike and I first got married, 27 years ago this year, that's hard to believe, I got a KitchenAid mixer. That thing is still going strong. I use it at home all the time. It's still never had a moment's trouble out of it. Yeah, they're a little bit more expensive. However, you can catch them on sale and they're worth the investment. Now, I don't like the one, this is just the classic. They have one that has the bowl that you move the lever and raise it up. I've got one somewhere. I personally don't like that style. I like just this traditional classic KitchenAid mixer. Stir it together. Make sure you get down in the bottom. If you don't have a stand mixer, you could, of course, use the little hand mixer like I did the mashed potatoes with, or even by hand if you're that strong. You want to put this in your prepared bundt pan, and this needs to bake for about an hour and 15 minutes. Takes a long time, but so worth it. It's such a good pound cake, sour cream pound cake. I've told you the story about my sister's neighbor, Mrs. Jones, who made, the best pound cake. It was delicious. She did hers by hand, and she only used Dixie crystal sugar, and she said you had to stir it in one direction only. You could not go back and forth. Not sure why, except maybe not adding in more air than what you needed, because a pound cake is supposed to be dense. It's not a light, fluffy angel food texture or even a regular sheet pan type cake. It's just not that. A pound cake is supposed to be a denser texture crumb cake. Now, get all of that out of there and pop it in your preheated oven. Set your timer and get your taste buds ready, because it really is delicious. All right, I'm gonna pop this in the oven, clean up my mess, and when I come back, we will get started on a quick and easy biscuit bake to go alongside all this. I'll be back in just a minute. Alrighty, welcome back. Now we're gonna make a little bread dish to go alongside our chicken bake. You really don't need to make a side dish with that. You've got mashed potatoes, you've got the mixed vegetables in it, you've got your chicken in it. So you don't need anything else. That truly is a one-dish meal. But if you wanna serve some bread alongside it, this is just an easy one to do. I have here just some regular canned biscuits. I'm just using the little ones. And you want to cut them into bites, like 4 pieces a piece. Cut each biscuit into. You use whatever kind you like. You want to have some melted butter, some Parmesan cheese grated. Cut them however you want to cut them. I've got 2 10 counts here. And we'll see if I want to do more once I get them on the pan. My oven is preheated to 400 degrees. Great one to let your kids help you with. If you want to put all of this in a Ziploc bag and let the kids shake it, they would enjoy doing that. But since it's just me, I'm going to just put it in a bowl. And we're going to have, I've got just some grated, shredded Parmesan cheese. I have here, I don't know, maybe half a stick of butter melted. To that, I'm gonna add some poppy seeds and some celery seed. But you can add whatever you want or nothing at all. You could just add, if you didn't want to add these and you wanted to add some Italian seasoning to it, or poultry seasoning since we're serving it with chicken, that would work. Whatever you have on hand. I'm just using poppy seeds and celery seed. If you wanted to make these a sweet bite, don't use the cheese. Do melted butter with cinnamon and sugar in there. Oh, maybe some granola crushed up if you wanted to add crunch to it, or not. But we want to mix our Parmesan with our butter. Add in some poppy seeds and some celery seed. Stir all that together. And then add your bites in. You will definitely want to have your sheet pan lined with some foil because you don't want to be scrubbing off Parmesan cheese that's baked onto your pan. So line it either with aluminum foil, I love the nonstick aluminum foil, or parchment paper, that would work too, whatever you have. Even if you're using a non-stick pan, I would for sure line it, since the cheese is directly on the pan if you don't line it. Unless you just like scrubbing pans. If you like scrubbing cheese off pans, you go ahead. I don't. Okay. Now, what we want to do is stir all that together. Make sure they are all coated with that mixture. And then put them on the whole thing. Just put the whole thing and spread them out, either with your fingers or with your spatula. I'm telling you, clean hands, chef's best tool. Spread them out. You don't want them to be all clumped together. You want them to be little individual bites. These are delicious. This would be good served with anything. You could serve it with a piece of grilled chicken or a hamburger steak or whatever you wanted. It would be good with anything you wanted. So there you go. Pop that in your oven at 400 degrees, about 10 minutes or so, until your biscuits are cooked. Make sure you get all that goodness out of there. We don't want to waste any of that cheese and butter flavor. Pop this in your oven for about 10 minutes or so. My chicken is done, and it has cooled just a little bit, so we can bring that over. Look how beautiful that is. Now, the last 10 minutes or so of baking, I just topped mine with a little bit more cheese and a little bit more of the French onions, French fried onions. You don't have to do that if you don't want to, but I just think it kind of encapsulates that chicken filling. That's delicious. Now, our pound cake, our sour cream pound cake is ready, and I have to confess, we've been eating on it while we're waiting because it's so good. It really is just delicious. I like to serve mine with strawberry. Oh, on its own is delicious, but if you really want to take it over the top, let's do some strawberries. Let me get a clean little paring knife. These have been washed and topped. The berries this year have just been delicious. I like to macerate mine with a little bit of sugar, but you don't have to do that. Depends on the sweetness of your berry. You know, sometimes you can get berries that are so sweet and delicious. And then sometimes you get berries that are so tart, yet good. So it really kind of just depends on the tartness of your strawberries. You don't have to serve that cake with anything. That cake is delicious on its own. You could also, you know, I mean, in my life, that would make a wonderful little breakfast with a cup of coffee, as well as dessert or a midnight snack. I love pound cake. I would rather have pound cake than chocolate cake, white cake, any other kind of cake. I love strawberry shortcakes. But this is kind of a take on that with the strawberries and the whipped cream that we're going to serve it with. But you don't have to do this. I just want to. It's perfectly good without them. Let me find a spoon here. I know where all my bigger spoons are. So I'm just going to add some of my sliced strawberries, because I love them. And I'm just going to top it with some of this whipped cream. Now, these are good. These don't, let me make sure. But I'm sure they are. They're not tart at all. They're delicious. And then just top it with use some whipped cream on there. Maybe put you one on top just to make it pretty. And you've got a wonderful dessert or breakfast. In my world, that would totally be breakfast. I love a fruit dessert the next morning with coffee. I just love it. That just is delicious to me. So here is our wonderful chicken bake. Let's get out a serving of that. Remember, we've got that mashed potato crust underneath. And it just, look how that just holds up. Instead of a pie crust, you have delicious mashed potatoes down under there. So good. That's truly a one-pot meal. And our biscuit bites will be out of the oven in just a minute. Alrighty, now everything is done. Here are our delicious little biscuit bites. You see how they're just coated with the butter and the cheese and the seasonings. Again, I use poppy seed and celery seed, but you can use whatever you want. It's up to you. Here is our delicious chicken bake. We made that with the base of the mashed potatoes, with the French fried onions and the cheese. Then we just used leftover chicken, some soup, and some mixed vegetables. You could add whatever you wanted to that. And then we baked that and topped it with some extra cheese and French fried onions. And to me, the star of the show, the pound cake. I like mine with a little bit of strawberry and whipped cream, but it's perfectly good all on its own. You do whatever you want to do. But I want to show you the pan here. These are still hot. You see why? You see all that little cheese? If you did not line it, you'd be scrubbing that off. So line your pans. Thank you for joining with me. I hope you try these things. Let me know what you think, and I will see you next time on Everyday Manna.